Modern professional cycling is designed to be predictable. Riders are specialized early, roles are defined, races are controlled through teams, radios, and data. By the final hour, most outcomes are already being negotiated, not discovered. And yet, Mathieu van der Poel keeps breaking races that are built not to break. This isn't about one attack or one win, it's a pattern. A rider accelerating when others are still waiting, choosing commitment before consensus, forcing races open at moments when the sport expects restraint. To understand why he can still decide races this way, you have to step away from the results and trace how he was built. Not just as a rider, but as a competitor shaped across disciplines, surfaces, and seasons.
Grandfather did in the 1960s. Mathieu van der Poel is a Monuments man again. Mathieu van der Poel is a Milano-Sanremo winner. Behind the back of the second, and it's Filippo Ganna.
Et voilà, Mathieu van der Poel remporte l'édition 2023 de Paris-Roubaix en solitaire. Derrière l'image de Philipsen.
Ouais, ça déconcentre Van Aert, je pense même. Hein.
Ah, oui,
Parce que Philipsen va devoir rentrer dans le match.
That story doesn't begin on the road. It begins much earlier, inside a family where cycling was never a dream, just a fact of life. Mathieu van der Poel was born in 1995 into a family where cycling wasn't romanticized, it was routine. His father, Adrie van der Poel, had already won major classics and world titles in cyclocross. His grandfather, Raymond Poulidor, was one of the most recognized riders in the sport's history, known as much for his near misses as his longevity. But this legacy didn't come with a script. As a child, Mathieu wasn't groomed for a specific future in cycling. He wasn't rushed into results or molded toward a role. He rode bikes because bikes were everywhere. Training rides were normal, races were familiar. The sport existed as part of daily life, not as a burden of expectation. What he learned early wasn't tactics or ambition, it was feel. Balance, control, how a bike reacts on different surfaces, how speed behaves when traction disappears. These skills came before strategy, before numbers, before pressure. By the time he began racing seriously, he wasn't chasing cycling success. He was already fluent in the language of the bike. That fluency would soon find the environment where it mattered most. Cyclocross is where Mathieu van der Poel's development becomes visible. As a junior, he enters a discipline that strips racing down to essentials: short laps, constant accelerations, mud, sand, off-camber turns. There is no space to hide behind teammates or long-term strategy. Every mistake costs time immediately. Van der Poel doesn't just adapt, he separates himself. By his late teens, the pattern is already clear. He wins races not by waiting for others to fade, but by forcing errors. He rides technical sections faster, dismounts cleaner, remounts sooner. Small advantages compound quickly in cyclocross, and he learns how to stack them. The results follow. He wins the Junior Cyclocross World Championship in 2013 and repeats the feat in 2014. 2 titles, 2 very different courses, same outcome. What stands out is not dominance through raw power, but control under instability. When races become chaotic, his decisions sharpen instead of slowing. These years matter because they teach him something road racing often delays: how to make choices while already at the limit, how to commit without reassurance, how to trust feel over calculation. Before he is known as a road rider, he becomes something else first, a specialist in uncertainty. And that skill will travel with him far beyond winter races.
If you think this story has been worth your time so far, that's the easiest way to support this channel, by liking, sharing, or subscribing. By the time Mathieu van der Poel reaches the elite ranks, he is no longer a prospect. He is already a reference point. In 2015, at just 19 years old, he wins the Elite Cyclocross World Championship. It is an early arrival at the highest level of the discipline, and it immediately changes how his career is framed. This is not a rider preparing for the road. This is a world champion choosing to stay in the dirt.
Over the next few seasons, he continues to build his winter resume, while many of his peers move away from cyclocross to narrow their focus. Van der Poel does the opposite. He commits fully, refining the same traits that brought early success: technical dominance, repeated high-intensity efforts, and an instinct for when to force separation. During this period, road racing exists, but it is secondary. He races selectively, without shaping his year around it. To some observers, this feels like hesitation. To others, a missed opportunity. The assumption is clear: if he wants to succeed on the road, he will eventually have to choose. What's often missed is what these years are giving him. Not just strength, but depth. He is learning to peak multiple times a year, to recover quickly, to race aggressively without losing control. Before the road demands an answer, he finishes building the rider he wants to be. Mathieu van der Poel's first real confrontation with road racing doesn't come in a single afternoon. It comes over days. In 2018, he lines up at the Tour of Britain and wins the race overall. Not through one explosive moment, but through consistency. Stage after stage, he recovers, responds, and finishes with authority. For the first time, there is clear evidence that his ability isn't limited to short efforts or selective races. He can handle volume, he can handle pressure, he can last. Still, skepticism remains. Stage races are one thing. At the Amstel Gold Race, late in the race, Van der Poel is distanced from the front group. The move looks terminal. The race appears settled. Then he begins to close. Meter by meter, rider by rider, he erases a gap that shouldn't be erasable. He reaches the leaders and wins the sprint. The moment spreads far beyond cycling because it contradicts logic. Not just tactical logic, but developmental logic. This is not how riders built outside the road system are supposed to win classics. After Amstel, the conversation shifts. He is no longer a curiosity. He is a problem the sport hasn't learned how to solve yet.
By 2020, Mathieu van der Poel is no longer testing whether his approach can work. He is testing whether it can hold. That spring, he wins the Tour of Flanders. It is one of the most controlled races in cycling, shaped by positioning, timing, and restraint. Van der Poel wins it by refusing to wait, matching moves, choosing moments, and committing before the race fully settles. The victory confirms that his style isn't just disruptive, it's durable. In 2021, his range reaches cycling's biggest stage. At the Tour de France, he wins Stage 2 at Mur de Bretagne and takes the yellow jersey, holding it for 6 days. It is a public breakthrough and a personal one, his first time leading the Tour in a race his grandfather had chased his entire career. For the first time, his name carries global weight beyond the classics. That same year, he adds another Cyclocross World Championship, reinforcing that winter dominance hasn't faded, but range carries risk. At the Tokyo Olympics, his mountain bike race ends in a heavy crash. Illness and fatigue interrupt seasons. The calendar demands restraint as much as ambition. Then, in 2022, he returns to win the Tour of Flanders again. Do you think combining cyclocross and road racing has limited Van der Poel's progress or enabled it? Let me know in the comments. By the time Mathieu van der Poel reaches the top of the sport, the list of victories is already enough to define a career. World titles, monuments, yellow at the Tour. On paper, the resume is complete, but the defining achievement sits beneath those results. What Van der Poel has done is not simply win across disciplines. He has carried one form of racing intelligence into another, at the highest level, without losing effectiveness. Cyclocross taught him how to make decisions under constant stress. Mountain biking sharpened his balance and aggression at speed. Road racing added patience and endurance. None of these replaced the others, they layered. This is why his attacks arrive late, why he exits corners faster, why he seems comfortable when races lose structure. These advantages are small in isolation. Over 6 hours, they become decisive. Modern cycling tends to narrow development early. Riders shed skills to refine efficiency. Van der Poel has done the opposite. He has preserved range in an era that discourages it and turned that range into a competitive edge. And it quietly challenges how the sport believes elite riders are built. Mathieu van der Poel's path includes interruptions that don't fit neatly into highlight reels, crashes that halt momentum, illness that forces withdrawal, seasons where expectations arrive faster than recovery.
Racing across disciplines means absorbing more impact, more fatigue, and more uncertainty than a narrowed calendar allows. What stands out is how he responds. There is no public reinvention, no dramatic pivot away from the path he's chosen. Adjustments happen quietly, calendars are reshaped, priorities shift, risk is managed, not eliminated. For Van der Poel, control doesn't mean minimizing danger, it means deciding which dangers are worth carrying. Mountain biking brings exposure, cyclocross demands intensity, road racing requires patience. Balancing them isn't an act of defiance, it's a deliberate choice about how he wants to compete. That choice explains why his racing still feels personal, in a sport trending toward uniform solutions. He isn't chasing safety or volume, he's protecting a way of riding that depends on feel as much as planning. The question now isn't whether his approach works, it's how long a career built on this balance can hold, and what it leaves behind when it does. Mathieu van der Poel has not rewritten the rules of cycling, he has shown where they bend. His career doesn't argue against specialization, it exposes its limits. In a sport that has learned how to control almost everything, pace, effort, outcome, he has preserved space for instinct, handling, and decision-making under uncertainty. Not by rejecting structure, but by arriving with a broader set of tools than the system expects. He didn't follow a straight path from promise to fulfillment. He built himself across seasons, disciplines, and surfaces. Cyclocross shaped his reactions. Mountain biking sharpened his control. Road racing gave his abilities consequence. Together, they formed a rider capable of deciding the hardest races in the world. What he leaves behind is not a template others can copy. Few riders could. What he leaves is permission, for development to take longer, for skill to travel, for races to remain unsettled longer than the models predict. If you value stories that look beyond results and try to understand how athletes are formed, you're welcome to subscribe and follow this series. And one last question to leave you with. In a sport built around control, do riders like Mathieu van der Poel represent a problem or a reminder of what cycling is meant to be? Drop a comment.